Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, you are somewhere where it's nice and cold. Unlike here in New York, well, more specifically, New Rochelle, New York, which is Westchester County. And it's going to be not only hot today, it is going to be hot the next 4 days. My God, we're under what's called a heat dome and it's not good, folks. But speaking of hot, we have some hot topics, and I mean, again, just like the weather, super hot. We look. I try to be as positive as possible, Jamie Moran, and obviously we'll have Umber jump in here in a minute. Today it's going to be one of those days where you might hear my voice be a little reserved because there is honestly so much rumored bad news that I don't even know what to believe, what not to believe. But what we are going to do here is we're going to use logic. We're going to use journalists that we know and trust. And we're going to talk it out, folks. I was under the impression that on the 30th, which is today, end of the fiscal year for 2026, we were going to get the official announcement. Well, apparently that announcement is happening in the first week of July. It could come down as soon as tomorrow, but it could also wait until the 6th, which is a rumor from someone that I've never heard of before, but has a pretty stout following. We're going to break all of that down. But Jamie Moran, how are you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be here. We've got some rough stuff to talk about, and as I was saying off, I'm feeling pretty sick today, so I'm not going to have my typical long rants. The dry air is not helping.
Yep.
As I was saying before, we don't have AC over here. It's not a thing. It's like a unicorn, It's a mythical beast at this point. And at this point in time, my house is at the equivalent of 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
Jesus Christ, bro. I don't know how you can do it. I would have said, take me to the insane asylum and just lock me up there. That I know they have AC. Because this is not good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So look, Jamie and I, as we await for Infinite Umbra to show up, which he has a lot to say because we've been talking back and forth in the DMs, and this is a pretty hot topic. We're going to start first with a report that happened over the weekend. And as I've done many, many times before, I am going to use purexbox.com and their particular story regarding Xbox Game Pass, its funding, and how third-party developers are being shown the door, so to speak. Well, according to Fraser Gilbert, this was posted yesterday at 4:16 p.m., and the headline reads, reports, Xbox has no, quote, blanket plans to end funding for third-party Game Pass titles. And in its subtext, it says, but some deals may have been put on hold. Okay, so where does this story originate from? Well, it started out that some developers were invited to an event in Italy. It was an Italian developers event that the word on the street was that Xbox was halting all third-party deals for Xbox Game Pass. And, of course, the alarm bells went off with a lot of people. Now, Jez Corden of Windows Central actually put out a post where he equated that because Xbox Game Studios was going to take such a hit with their development core, and that's like, I think, 23 or 24 studios, that Xbox was going to lean on third-party developers. I have his story. I will get to it in a second. I want to read it verbatim. But let me just, before I bring in Jamie Moran, I just want to read a little bit from the story here. And it goes on to say this. Earlier today, a rumor was doing the rounds about Xbox Game Pass and the potential of third-party deals being frozen or ending entirely. But don't panic. It doesn't sound like any of that is, quote, blanket plans and that Xbox themselves are going to end funding permanently. So that's some good news. The rumor came from a podcast called The Business of Video Games, where former Raw Furry sales officer Fernando Rizzo mentioned that he has heard certain developers, quote, who were in the frame for Xbox Game Pass deals had got the rug pulled out from under them, and that he believed, his opinion, he believed the deals had been paused and were in the process of being, quote, figured out. Okay, now here is a later update from Eurogamer that they have quoted here. And it goes on to say this, quote, I definitely don't want to oversell what I know. Not privy to any internal Microsoft conversations, but I had spoken to a number of devs that had Game Pass deals in various stages of negotiations who were told the deals were on hold. I don't personally think it's the death of Game Pass or anything, probably just a new CEO wanting to get her feet under her desk and everyone aligned on strategy before the Game Pass team starts cutting checks again. Now, that makes perfect sense. Now, here it goes. The incredible Pure Xbox quotes Jez Corden here, and this is what I was looking for, and now I don't have to go find it, Jamie Moran, and they have it right here. Windows Central's Jez Corden has been investigating the story as well today and says, quote, a trusted source has told him that there are no, quote, blanket plans to end funding for third-party games on Xbox Game Pass. He acknowledges that some deals may have been frozen or have fallen through, however. And here is a quote from Jez Corden. Goes on to say this, ladies and gentlemen, quote, no update from Microsoft, but a trusted source suggested to me that my analysis was in fact correct. There are no blanket plans to end funding for third-party games on Game Pass. Any recent run of frozen discussions revolves around Microsoft's fiscal year ending and Xbox's reset plan. So with Rizzo's update and the investigation from Windows Central, this doesn't sound as worrying as first feared. Corden even mentions that he expects Xbox to lean more into third parties, although that's just his speculation. And in closing, Jamie Moran in chat, he says, perhaps we'll get further clarification on this in the coming days, in which case we'll update you with any key information. For now, though, it sounds like funding will in fact continue for third parties, although who knows whether it'll be increased or decreased or remain the same after Xbox's 100-day reset plan is over. So let's bring in Jamie Moran. Now, Jamie, look, since Asha took over from Phil Spencer, there has been a lot of doubt with Xbox Game Pass. And there's been some questions about first-party games being removed, and we saw that happen in the form of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Now, look, when I did my personal poll, most people could honestly care less about Call of Duty in Xbox Game Pass. And I understand that. Now, me personally, that kind of stung a little bit because I have become a COD player in the last two iterations. More 6 than 7 for sure, but I've been playing Call of Duty nonstop for about 2 years. And I'm going to continue this with Modern Warfare 4, and it would have been pretty dope to have that in Xbox Game Pass as we did the two previous iterations. But again, thinking on the side of the common man who ultimately were really hurt by the increase to $30, it priced out a lot of people. And even though that didn't affect me, it affected people in this community who I care a lot about. Now, that might sound like pandering, but I'm here to tell you that I don't do that. I call out Microsoft when it's necessary. I gave them smoke for this $30 increase, And I'm glad that Asha came in and dropped it $7, right? And in the process of doing so, well, Call of Duty was taken out. And we know, and I took a lunatic's bet the other day live on the air, and I'll say it again just to put myself on the chopping block. I think because Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 has so much buzz, and it's going to be sold in 4 places: Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and now Nintendo. It has a real shot at outselling. I know, again, folks, why I called it a lunatic bet, Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, there's going to be someone that's going to clip this, and you can point and make fun. I said it's a lunatic's bet. Do I think it's actually going to happen? No. Do I think it's going to be damn close? I absolutely do. But circling the wagons, Jamie Moran, so far, because remember, literally right before the showcase, what was a rumor that came the way of Jeff Grubb? Oh, well, Jeff has heard that Gears of War E-Day out of Xbox Game Pass. And he was wrong. Right? So we know this year that everything that has been announced will be in Game Pass. Everything that was announced at the showcase, if it still exists, will be in Xbox Game Pass. What they do after these next 2 years, I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. What I can tell you is that if they are going to start, and again, just walk with me on this for a second. If the suggestion of shrinking Xbox Game Studios from its 23 or 24 studios to something like 18, which, and again, I'm only speculating based on the rumors, right? 4 or 5 studios might go. And that's disgusting in my opinion. If they shrink it, right, that means that Xbox is going to have to continue and figure out a way to pad Xbox Game Pass, because you have a dead service if you don't bring in new games. And it doesn't even matter the size. It could be a game made by one person like Vampire Survivors and Ponicle, or it could be a team of, 200 people that made a game that dropped it in the Game Pass. So they're going to have to figure out how to not only keep up with the Joneses with their own content, but they're going to have to use third party, second party, and indies. And that's why I agree with Jez, and I agree with the sentiment that it's unlikely that they're going to start, close the doors on this content, because they need it for their service. So, Jamie, after hearing what Jez Corden has to say, after hearing what some of the developers of this podcast had to say, where do you kind of fall in Xbox Game Pass doomed?
I have to put it out there. I think it's funny how all these media outlets, rather than doing, investigative journalism, they'll just run with rumors. It's like, is Xbox getting rid of day one games? Is Xbox stop doing third party games? Yeah, like it feels like there's something new every day at this point. It does seem like ever since their summer showcase, there's been a nonstop barrage of negative stories. Gears of War isn't going to be exclusive. Gears of War isn't going to be in Game Pass. Or Gears of War is exclusive. That means it's not going to sell well. It's always something. And I just think it's funny that, it's just a constant barrage of negativity. Now the Game Pass thing, I always thought that story was stupid, because Game Pass makes billions of dollars a year. It wouldn't do Microsoft any good to stop doing third-party deals. They've helped funded whole games before because of Game Pass. So, I that story never made sense to me. Would it make sense that Asha Sharma is looking at these deals because she's now the lead of Xbox? Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, look at how many games go to Game Pass every single year, right? Small and big games, right? Maybe they want to restructure how many games they put in every month. Maybe they want to stop doing as many small games, because that all does add up. But until they tell us, it's all just guessing games. But I thought that whole story was nonsense. They weren't going to stop doing third party games and Game Pass. You mentioned the Call of Duty thing. Even before he did it. I said that Call of Duty should be removed just because the cost going up for Game Pass really hurt a lot of people, and it clearly stagnated the growth of Game Pass. And when you have a stagnation in the growth of a service, that's bad. But apparently it's gone back up since they've lowered the price. But yeah, the whole story, I just laughed at it because there's no way in hell that would be true. The funny thing is, you have these media outlets that just run with these stories and just they won't try, because bear in mind, all these people, they always talk about how they have these insiders at Microsoft, but they never actually get concrete details on these leaks. And the funny thing is, there's multiple different subscription services, right? PlayStation Plus, they do third-party games. Nobody bats an eye, right? Game Pass is the big baddie, and just because things are changing doesn't mean that third-party games are going away. It wouldn't benefit Microsoft in any way to remove third-party games. Like I put it like this: if you only did first-party content in your subscription service when you're gaming, that would be pretty dire.
I agree. Yeah.
And none of these companies really do. Yeah, you have EA and Ubisoft that do their own stuff, but that's a different thing. Nintendo's subscription service, that's to play old games, and a lot of it's their stuff. So like, I don't see any reality where that's a reality. I do think it's a bit weird how like everyone just ran with it straight away. You have Eurogamer, GameStop, GameSpot, all these other outlets like just posting about this stuff immediately. And I agree with Jez. Jez said that he thinks that there's going to be more. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because look, if they are going to reduce studios, and we're going to be talking about the studio thing in a bit, like there's so many third-party games that do need help funding, that are close to the finish line but can't get there. Like these Game Pass deals do help with those titles. So like, yeah, the whole story I just thought was nonsense, and the media needs to do a better job at actually covering these games. And by the way, I want to talk about this quickly. Retractions. Games media outlets don't do them anymore. They post a story like this, it gets debunked, and they don't remove the story. They don't post a retraction. They just post an update in the article, so it still gets its revenue. And that has annoyed the living hell out of me for years. It's all about the clicks. It's not about serving the people for news. It's just clicks. And this Game Pass story was just another thing that pointed towards they don't care. They just care about the clicks. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the clicks are what drive engagement. Obviously, sensationalism journalism has just become a thing, right? Go crazy with a headline to generate clicks. I understand ultimately it's a business, Jamie, in chat, but you made mention of something that I kind of want to talk about just for a second, and I want to draw, yesterday I kind of, and I don't want to say I threw him under the bus, because I don't like to do that. I kind of called out Tom Henderson for some of his antics, his anti-Xbox antics since the showcase. And I mentioned it I have the receipts, folks. If you know how to, read the room, so to speak, you can read between the lines of what someone is saying and how they're saying it. And you specifically made mention of something that's very interesting. And I want to get the chat involved in this and get their hot takes, because I know that I'm not a lunatic, right? And, one of the things that we saw last year and even in years prior, what did games journalism want Xbox to do, Jamie? They kept asking them to compete. Xbox has got to compete. This is why it's because of Xbox that prices went up, right? Because they're not competing. So Sony just raises their price and it's okay. Blame Xbox for everything has been the standard fare for games journalism at least the last couple of years, right? But you specifically said that since Showcase in June, and I've said this publicly and privately, it does seem like it's almost a concentrated effort to shit on Xbox and go out of their way to post rumors and actually report them at like their facts, which is, again, sensationalism in journalists. That's what they do. As many clicks as they can get, by throwing a flash headline up there. You know what's interesting, and I don't want to shift it to blame the media again, because that's getting old. They suck, the media. There's a handful of websites that I use. Most of them could go blow for all I care. And Pure Xbox is one of the ones I really like. I still like VGC. I like what they do over there. They've done some wacky things as well, but not as egregious as like IGN, for instance. But we all know you can't spell ignorant without IGN. And Jamie, do you kind of feel that ever since Xbox has shifted their personal internal narrative to, hey, we're going to compete, we're going back to exclusives, something as incredible as Gears of War E-Day is not coming to PlayStation because we want that for our customers? Do you feel that it might that gaming journalism has actually gone out of their way since this, or am I a lunatic?
No, I think they've got. This is how I know for a fact. This is all just crazy, right? So, I think it was last Wednesday. Last Thursday when Xbox raised the price of their consoles in the US.
Right.
Do you know what else happened that day? Sony laid off 400 people.
They gutted a Bungie. Yes.
Yeah. And do you know which story had the most coverage?
The price increase. Yes.
Now, let's change the tables a little bit here. Let's say if PlayStation was raising the price of their consoles and Xbox had their layoffs today, right? Let's say both of those things happen. We both know which story would get the most coverage.
The Xbox layoffs would.
Yeah. And I'm not going to mention names, but I do this thing where I like to say, like what people of people that cover PlayStation, like what did they think, right? And I've noticed this trend that when there's a negative PlayStation story, these people do not cover the negative stories that much. It's barely in the thumbnail or title, and it's just Xbox stuff, this GTA, PS5 Pro graphics, that, and it's the same regurgitated stuff over and over again. And I think the media knows this, because if you post negative content about Xbox and positive stuff about PlayStation, you get more views than the other way around, right?
You absolutely do. Correct.
That's just how it is. And ever since their summer showcase, like, really think about it. Like, I've been saying for the past 2 years that when Microsoft started doing the multi-platform stuff, the conversation completely shifted away from games, right? It wasn't about, hey, look at this cool feature in Indiana Jones. It was like, no, this game's also coming to PlayStation 5. Nobody was talking about the games anymore. And I thought that was a huge disservice to these games, that nobody was talking about them, right? Just talking about platforms. And what were we seeing about a week before the game showcase? People weren't talking about, hey, what are we going to see horde in action? Are we going to see multiplayer? How much of the campaign are we going to see? None of that was being talked about. It was, is it going to PlayStation 5? Like, platform talk. That's how it's been for ages. And I think, the media saw the reaction to the exclusive news, right? Because, like, we see that Xbox, they've messed up plenty of times over the years. Nobody's perfect, right? But, like, when Asha Sharma stepped in, there was a clear focus back to the console, right? Less of this PC ecosystem, handheld, portable stuff, right? Focus on the console itself. That's where the majority of their gamers are, right? As soon as Xbox start doing that again, there was almost this little, kind of tilt shift by the media to just constantly send a barrage of negativity to Xbox news. And you see people in the media over the past 48 hours saying, oh, they hear about this bloodbath. And we're going to be talking about this stuff in a minute, but I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah.
But
fine.
But you see people bring up this bloodbath, right? But the thing is, they never mentioned the bloodbath with PlayStation, and they keep saying bloodbath, but they're not mentioning the studios, right? So they've heard X, Y, and Z studios are shutting down, but they're not mentioning them, right? They're not like they wouldn't have to be mentioning people's names. No one would get in trouble, but they won't mention studios. We've heard a complete. I've said barrage about 40 times today, but there's been a complete barrage of negativity ever since that showcase. Be it, hey, Gears of War. I've seen this before. Gears of War deserves to be multi-platform. What the hell does that even mean? Are you saying Wolverine doesn't deserve to be multi-platform? That's such a weird thing to say. Not enough players are going to be playing this game. I think people out of their minds. There's more people that game on Xbox and PC combined than there are on PlayStation. Like, there's hundreds and millions of gaming PCs out there, you know. So, and by the way, all the Gears fans are on Xbox already. So like, it's ridiculous. And like now we're seeing with the people going back and forth with the rumors of the layoffs and this Game Pass thing. The Game Pass thing came out of nowhere over the weekend, and this is another thing I've noticed. This news drops on a weekend. Well, these leaks always drop on a weekend when Xbox is less likely to respond to them, right? None of these, companies like Xbox, PlayStation, basically any company doesn't really respond to people or like news or rumors or anything on a weekend when they're all off, right? So, like, to me, I think it feels weird. It feels, oh, by the way, I have to mention this. Boom, I see this dumb comment. So I said that, Gears will have more players on Xbox and PC combined. That is a factual thing. And this person in chat says it's disingenuous to combine Xbox and PC together against one platform. No, it's not. They call it active players, right? I'm calling this person out because everything I say on this podcast, no matter what it is, I could say I'm holding a Rubik's Cube and I'm holding a Rubik's Cube and someone will complain because people are that dumb, right? I'm mentioning something that's factual, right? Most PC players that are on Steam will have access to this, right? So just shut up, right? You could tell the hate's getting to me. I could really do with air conditioning, but that's not a thing here. Look, the whole news thing over the past couple of weeks, I get it. People are annoyed, it's constant. It's every day.
It has been literally relentless, to be honest with you.
And typically I'd open up social media on like any day of the week, and the first story I see at the minute is just something negative. It's negative all the time, and this Game Pass thing, just I just shook my head at it because people believe this, right? People believe this Game Pass story out of nowhere, right? So some random podcast over a weekend says that Microsoft's going to stop adding third-party games to Game Pass. They're going to stop doing these deals. Nobody asked why. Nobody did.
They just ran with the story.
Yeah, they just ran with the story. No investigative journalism. None of this stuff. They just ran with it, and that's why people get mad at Xbox because they don't respond straight away. But Microsoft's no company really responds straight away to these rumors. And hell, you'd probably have Nintendo that would send out a cease and desist, over a rumor. So like, I think that them coming out today saying, look, that they aren't doing that. Just people need to stop running with rumors straight away, especially with this kind of stuff. It's stupid.
Well, I mean, listen, before we get into, the bloodbath that is being coined as potentially the worst layoff in gaming history, got to welcome in Infinite Umber. Umber, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Hey, Boom. Good morning. Good morning, Jamie. Morning, chat. I'm feeling all right. I had a nice little nap. It's boiling hot heat here in Chicago right now.
Bro, it's just as hot here in New York. You know what? The summer can go F itself. No, thank you.
Yep.
I'm not a fan. I could tell you that right now.
Yeah, but, we prefer the blizzard-like conditions, especially in Chi-Town. It gets cold there. Shout out to Sith Lord, who's also in Chi-Town. Umbra, I know you just got here, and we're on the topic of a rumor that popped up over the weekend. I know we were talking in the DMs. You heard it. So, according to Jez Corden of Windows Central, he has a story in front of me where it goes on to say, "Is Xbox freezing third-party Xbox Game Pass deals? ? Here's what's being said and why I don't buy it." And this was posted yesterday. And in its subtext, it says a new report suggests that Microsoft is freezing money for new third-party Xbox Game Pass deals, and I don't buy it. Now, he does have some information in here that's pretty interesting that wasn't in the original story that we read from PureXbox.com. So Jez goes on to say this, Umbra. The other day, well, he goes on to say, let me confirm this. Another day, another Xbox rumor. And today's revolves around Xbox Game Pass and Microsoft's controversy-prone subscription service, giving access to hundreds of games on a monthly subscription basis. And obviously what he's referring to is the rumor that these Game Pass deals are drying up, or the door is being closed, or even the rug is being pulled out from under developers trying to get their Game Pass deals. Well, Jed goes on to say this. Xbox Game Pass took a battering last year when Microsoft made the spectacularly ill-advised move of making it $30 a month, a 50% increase. In one fell swoop, Microsoft destroyed one of its most stable revenue drivers for its gaming operation, leading to the biggest decline in it's seen in its history, meaning that they had more people unsub during that time since inception when Game Pass was announced and put out there for us to purchase in 2017. Jez goes on to say, new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma remarked a few weeks ago that now that Game Pass Ultimate has returned to a far more respectable $22 per month, they've started seeing growth return to the service. But I'm curious if it's anywhere near back to its previous levels. Now, again, Umbra, you and I talk about Game Pass because it is the most affordable service in gaming. And honestly, it gives you more bang for your buck than both Sony and Nintendo combined. Nintendo service is not expensive, right? It's $60 a year to play online. And, you know, it does have a more expensive service where you can get the classic games. And that's great. And I pay for that. Mrs. Boom pays for, and I think the online is only 25 or 30 bucks. If you want like all of the classic games, I think it's 60 per year, which isn't bad. Sony, on the other hand, well, their service is their service. They don't put a lot of their own games in there. They do get some really good games. They've had quite a few in there. Occasionally, they'll get some day and date. You know, we know a story from last year where they're going to try and get at least one new game per quarter that's not first party but is third party, and you know that's why they justify the price. But there's no one that does it better than Xbox Game Pass. And the story that broke over the weekend that a lot of the outlets ran with was that these deals, these Game Pass deals, were drying up. And it's we know that they're in the process of doing a Xbox reset. And when you're doing a reset, things get paused. And that's ultimately what it sounds like is happening here, is that, according to Jez and several others, that there's no blanketed effect where they're just going to stop doing deals. But they are on some are on pause right now as Asha and Team Xbox figure out this reset. I want to get your thoughts on this, because obviously for you and me and many people in this chat, Game Pass obviously saves us a bunch of money, but also opens up our wallets to buy other things because we don't have to buy the first party games and some second party and even some indies for that matter. What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of unsettled in where I'm at right now.
Okay.
It's multiple things here. So it's problematic for a number of reasons. Just for a lot of these journalists are going to try to go for what they feel the red meat is.
Yep.
And they're probably hearing a lot of conflicting messaging themselves, right? It's probably a lot of panic for people behind the scenes who are worried, like, oh, wait, this happened, so this must be because Microsoft or Xbox is doing this, right? So I think they're getting a lot of mixed messaging. I don't know if I would say all of them are purposely trying to spread FUD. I don't know if I believe that's the case. But in general, I think they're going to, instead of them maybe doing their due diligence, they may be quicker to run with that as the truth versus doing their due diligence. And that's where they would be at fault at, you know what I mean? Which, to whomever is as a Xbox guy or whomever, maybe, you know, that would be enough for you to be like, that's completely besmirching what you do as a journalist, which I would agree with and understand. Me, I just take it as, okay, so a lot of speculation. I'm used to that. I'm used to seeing and hearing that and understanding that there's going to be a lot of speculation with something tumultuous like this going down. So I don't even honestly let it affect me too much. I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see what they're talking about. Let me go to more trusted people. Let me wait for see what Tom Warren is possibly posting. Let me see what Jazz is saying. No, and then I go from there. I don't rush to any judgment. As you'll notice, I don't post anything like that on Twitter about it. I'm not like, oh, see, Xbox, blah, blah, blah. I don't do that because I'm just like, well, we've seen time and time again where that's been reported. Next thing you know, oh, well, what really happened was this. And we saw that recently, right? So I think it's just a matter of people. I think journalism is definitely lacking in some areas. Don't get me wrong. There are some who definitely clear lack journalistic integrity, but I would also say that that journalism itself in the form it used to be is kind of a dying art in some ways, where they're desperate now to try to get clicks, right? So they have to go with what you were pointing out with the sensationalism. So I think that's a bit of it too, unfortunately. And the bad part about all of this is that all of this is happening because of moves that Microsoft feels it has to make. So I guess, the old saying used to be that there is no such thing as bad publicity, right? I don't know if I would necessarily agree.
I definitely don't agree with that. Bad news is bad news. I know some people say that, well, bad news is at least news. No.
Yeah.
I think
that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Yeah, and I think like you keep getting enough bad news, is going to damage your brand. And I think Microsoft has had unfortunate brand damage for a long while. I think we can all agree. And so having news like this continue to happen rather, it's going to lead a lot of people to doubt. It's going to lead a lot of people to lack trust for Microsoft and for Xbox. People already had a great mistrust for Microsoft in general, that I don't think a lot of people really pay attention to. And they kind of figured, oh, they're good now. No, most people still don't trust Microsoft, and they haven't since, back in the 90s. So this is not some new founded thing. That's why Microsoft had to put up the whole facade of we're the nice corporation, mega corporation. See, the kumbaya. That's where that came from. That's why they had to do that. So my thinking is that, yeah, these journalists, some of them, I'm not gonna, I couldn't name any specific people, but I know that some of this is definitely them trying to jump out there to get the scoop, so to speak, and get the sensationalism going so they can get the clicks.
So you're talking about the technique of fastest first.
This is exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
But the saddest part about it is that some of this is going to turn out to be true.
Oh, right? Sure. Yes.
That's the saddest part about this. So that's why I don't celebrate, because I know some people are like, see, that turned out to be bad, false. Like, so we're in the clear now. We're not in the clear. There is still some devastating news to happen coming up, right? And these people.
We're gonna get into the second half of the show, brother. I got again. We're gonna take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, it's gonna be bad.
And that's the thing. So that's why I'm not like jumping out to be like, yeah, I was dismissed, because some of these things might turn out being worse than what they're talking about. If we're going by some of the things that's being discussed by Jez, of course, and I won't name it because I know you're going into that soon. And of course, with the that gentleman who I know a few people had referenced, which was that what was his name, Chris Broussard, I think it was.
Yeah, it's George Broussard.
Yeah, I'm thinking of sports, Chris Broussard. But George Broussard,
the other Broussard,
his brother. But who of course is a long-time vet in the gaming industry like that. So
yeah, again,
I feel like obviously if anyone has smoke for the journalists, for, like you said, for trying to get it out there, just for clicks and things like that, like you and Jimmy are pointing out, absolutely, you all are warranted to have the smoke for them, 100%. What I do is And what I'm doing here is waiting to hear the other shoe drop, because it doesn't really matter what they're saying. What matters is the truth. And once we'll be getting that this week or so, it's not going to be pretty one way or another. So that's the thing. I can't really find any way to celebrate just yet, because I know people are about to lose their job, and it's devastating out here right now, man. So I'm worried about them. That's the thing my mind is going to. I'm not even really thinking about, oh man, this studio. I'm thinking about these people who are about to be out of work, and that I always hate when this happens. And it seems like, it doesn't even seem like, this is just a fact. These past 4, maybe 5 years, it's just like every time it's like heavy numbers, right? And now we're hearing that this could be one of the biggest, industry defining moments right here. So it's just worrisome. So I agree with you guys when it comes to that, and how these journalists need to be better in that respect. But I caution it with, well, we're still about to have some heavy news. So to me, it doesn't even really matter what they're saying. There's so much as if it doesn't contradict enough of what's about to happen. But yeah,
what I want to do, and again, I don't want to continue down, piling on the rabbit, so to speak, with journalists. Because look, the truth of the matter is that I want it to be clear. I understand gaming news is business, right? Just like Double Barrel Gaming has become a business. We don't spread FUD for clicks, likes, and subs. I mean, the numbers obviously prove that. You don't see me ripping off my shirt live on camera. You don't see me doing this with the face, or anything like that. I like to bring in written word, because that is the evidence-based conversation that we use here on this channel. And again, this is just pointing out how places like IGN do use sensationalism for their clicks. Check this out. So Joey Kraken of WBG put out a post that's spot on, and should, if you have been on the fence about the Xbox tax, and I know people are, when I say it, you might roll your eyes. Well, you know how I always say I like evidence-based conversation? Well, I'm going to bring you a one-to-one to prove my point. Now, I could spend an entire 45-minute segment of showing you, detailed information. Before we move on to what could be the rumored bloodbath, I want to show you what I'm talking about. So check this out, folks. IGN, who we know is absolute dog shit, right? Yes, they're a big conglomerate, but ultimately they're just garbage, right? That's what they are. That's what they've been for years. And they have gone out of their way to dump on Xbox, because we know that it brings in clicks. So check this out. Here's the one-to-one for you folks. And now you can't even deny this is happening. So this is the biggest conglomerate in games media, right? Well, I'm going to show you something, chat and panel. IGN posted the other day, load up your PlayStation 5 today and you'll be greeted to a new custom user interface advertising Grand Theft Auto 6, part of Sony's major new partnership with Rockstar Games. And of course, they have a link, an IGN Summer of Gaming they have there, right? So they're championing this. They're saying, yes, PlayStation 5 is advertising for Grand Theft Auto 6 when you turn on your console, letting you know basically that if you want, you can go buy this right now, right? That same conglomerate, thanks to Joey Kraken of WBG, check this out. This was 2 years ago. Things have changed, but have they? IGN goes on to say, Xbox users booting up their consoles today were greeted with a large splash screen, prompting them to buy Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, and some of them aren't too happy about it. And they went on to say how this was invading gamers' lives. Like, Xbox shouldn't be doing it. How dare they? Pretty crazy. From one year to another, where they threw Microsoft under the bus for a literal, you press B and it's gone, to championing PlayStation and having Grand Theft Auto when you boot it up. This is what I'm talking about. Now, that might be a small nugget, but that's gaming journalism, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Jamie said it in his segment. What was the biggest story last week? Was it the fact that there is literally a skeleton crew running marathon at Bungie? They gutted half of the studio. The entire Bungie team that's responsible or was responsible for Destiny 2 just completely gone. And that wasn't the big story of last week. The big story, and it is a big story because it's disgusting, that Xbox raised their prices on their consoles for the third time. Yes, that is a big story. But again, go back and look at the headlines, folks. The Bungie stuff was barely even mentioned. I didn't see anybody going on rants about how terrible this is. And it is terrible. It's terrible that 400 plus people are without a job. And that's just sucks. Let me tell you something, folks. I don't care what the severance is. At some point, that's going to run out. And the way groceries and everything cost so much goddamn money, that's not going to last long. So it's worrisome for sure. But again, you can say that I'm, capping for Xbox or whatever you want to use as, a rhetoric. But that's just one of many things that clearly show, one, you can't say enough good things about no matter what they do, even if it's bad. And the other thing is, everything Xbox does is shit. Does not matter, right? But listen, again, you can take it or leave it. That's perfectly fine. But I think I've made my point, Jerry. But listen, let me catch up on
that's just facts right there, though, what you're speaking about. And shout out to
please add to it, sir. Go ahead.
Oh man, just saying, like I was quick to send that over to the DM because I saw that and I saw so many people responding to it. I'm like, wow, like it takes the Xbox community to kind of get at these people because the Xbox community keeps receipts unlike anyone else.
Yeah, so they do. And I'm one of them.
I watch them like, oh man, they are on it. So like I typically, remember when I said that I typically look for people who I trust. So I'll look at a Jizz, I'll look at maybe a Tom Warren, right? I think they're good faith. I don't typically go to IGN and stuff like that. So that's why I don't really see that. So that's when I see the Xbox community propping it up and correcting them or calling them out. That's when I'm like, oh, I see. I'll see it from the community doing what they do, right? Because I don't give them my clicks. I don't go to them.
Well, I don't go to them either. Like I said, people send it to me all the time, and I'll read like the headline. But when I saw that you actually posted that, but I was listening to WBG this morning while I was doing the wash, and I'm like, I have to mention this because his tweet blew up.
Yep. And I mean, it did for sure. And I mean, they're right. Like there are no two ways about this. You can see the change in tone and attitude very clearly. And that's the thing that we keep pointing out that I think a lot of people just don't want to be honest about or admit. There is an Xbox tax. When we say that, I know it sounds conspiratorial. I know it sounds like, like we got the tinfoil, as Everborn would say, the tinfoil kufi on, but it's not really the case. What we're speaking about is a general attitude and an unconscious bias, sometimes maybe a conscious bias from a lot of these journals or whomever, or those who are just podcasting or whatever. I mean, look at it, kind of funny sometimes, right? How their tone is dramatically different when it concerns Xbox versus PlayStation. It is very clear and evident. And this is just one new little leaf wrinkle, I guess, to a long time issue.
I mean, listen, again, not to drag this out, but the same conglomerate, which is viewed as the biggest gaming website in multimedia, right? I think we can all agree. Now, maybe you don't agree. I think that they're absolute garbage. But over the weekend, what else did they do? They ran a story that Grand Theft Auto was outsold on PlayStation versus Xbox 8-1. And do you know how they came to that? Their own internal numbers from being an affiliate. So, I mean, and again, this is what I'm talking about. The sensationalism. Now, I'm an Xbox dude. I'm a bot. Everybody knows that, right? And I have an affiliate link for Grand Theft Auto, thanks to Aniba. It's I've been tweeting about it left, right, and center. Now, if you were to pull my numbers, which are tiny, I mean, they're tiny, but most people that listen to this show are Xbox fans. That's like me going out and saying, holy cow, you're not going to believe this, folks. According to Mr. BoomStick's affiliate links, Xbox is outselling 15-1. Wow, Xbox is really, knocking down those number doors. And how stupid would that be? Really stupid.
And they feel they can get away with it because they're IGN, right?
Like yes, they're
big enough
correct.
to lie and get away with it. And yeah, using an affiliate, even when they said it, it's like, well, how will they know? And it's not like Rockstar letting them know, hey, just to let you know, we got a 6-1 spread here. Like it's pretty obvious that it's pretty obvious that I think it's relatively logical to come to an understanding that there will be more sales likely on PlayStation because of the install base. That's just common sense, right? And no matter which way you slice it, Grand Theft Auto is one of the biggest franchises in all of gaming in history. Of course, there are going to be a lot of people buying it. Third-party game, obviously, on PlayStation and Xbox. PlayStation having a bigger install would likely mean those who are likely inactive for PlayStation first party will definitely be active for a third party for this, right? Of this magnitude. So that's obvious. But that number of saying, or that split rather, they have no way of knowing that. They pulled that right from their buttocks, as they would say. I don't want to curse. So yeah, of course they would have no way of knowing that. It's just sensationalism, as we were speaking about. And again, IGN feels they can get away with it because they do it all the time, and they're IGN. Who's going to stop them, so to speak? That's how they look at it.
Well, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Game Pass is going to continue to have content. IGN is going to continue to use sensationalism in their reporting because they are more concerned with clicks than truth. And gaming journalism is still, well, shit. Let's just say that. But look, let me catch up on Super Chats, gentlemen, and we're going to get into this potential bloodbath. Okay, we're going to use logic. We're going to use evidence-based conversation to come to what could be a really ugly and bad time for Xbox and its Xbox Game Studios as a whole. Ginger Prime goes on to say this after being a channel member for 13 months. He says, an auspicious day, gentlemen. Yeah, indeed it is. Ginger, great to see you here, brother. I got to definitely get on one of the, maybe we can get, we can work together next week at some point.
Absolutely.
Jump on the show. Because he also has gifted 5 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. Brother, that is crazy generous of you. Thank you very much for that, man. That is very kind. And there's no really good way to talk about this. Again, it's one of those things you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. And mind you, we're still waiting. Like, we don't even know. We're just going to go based on some information. You happen to know who the gentleman was. I've never heard of him before, but apparently he is an industry insider. So we'll loosely read what he wrote, and we'll try and work with what we've already known and what we've been hearing. It's me, the broke boy. Will, thanks so much for this, brother. He drops a very generous $5 super chat. And Will goes on to say, did you see that leak that security guards were blocking the locked doors at Rare Studios and preventing employees from getting in? Desperation. Yeah. I actually didn't see that because I literally, again, I said this to Jamie, you can't see the other side of the house. It's like a bomb hit it. I just came in from grocery shopping and bringing stuff up from the truck, and I'm dying. So I literally raced over here, drunk some water, cooled myself off, and I'm doing a podcast. So I didn't see that, but I will check it out. Thank you so much for that.
I saw it a while ago. I didn't share it because it was coming from Reddit.
Jesus
or whatever.
Christmas.
But yeah, there's somebody reporting or claiming at least that the armed security guards or whatever.
Armed security guards at Rare.
Yeah, Rare. I'm like,
because you know,
I'm like, so they're like barring Rare out now, huh? They're like, oh, you guys can't get in here, in it, and they're like, okay,
no more CFD and pirating for you.
you sailed your last sail. But yeah, that was kind of funny.
So
I just laughed at it. Yeah.
This is gonna be. This is again. We're gonna see. The truth is gonna come out in the next couple of days. We have actually a specifics of when to expect this bad news, but I'll get to that in a second. JJ saying 117 drops a very generous $2 super chat and says the news like IGN sources are trust me, bro. LOL. You know what's sad? It's actually that, and the fact that just because they can, and I really think no one said it better than Umbra. Like, they know that they're IGN, and they say these things because they know they can. Ultimately, that's what it is. Like, who's gonna check them? You know, is Microsoft? And again, you know, we say this: the old Microsoft team just used to bend over and take it, and I'm not being facetious. Like, they would let things just go and go and go and spiral out of control, and people could make fun of them, and they'd give them consoles. People could run false narrative stories, and they'll get codes.
Yep.
I'll
throw it out there even further, Boom. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll throw it out there even further. Like, the whole thought of IGN feeling they can get away with it is because the people who could call them out, they have bigger platforms than myself or you.
Yep.
They have ties to these people at IGN. They don't want to call out.
Yes, that is correct.
Right? The people with kind of funny people don't want to call out kind of funny because they got ties with them. So they're buddies. So they don't want to call out their buddies. Right. And so it's just it's a never ending kind of thing where they have to protect home, so to speak, in a way. They're home away from home. So who's going to really call out?
And they're all tied to PlayStation, by the way.
In some fashion. A lot of them are. Yeah. So like the people like myself, you know, Joey, you know, obviously with Durden and the folks, I know Durden and Will, but those are the people who will have to really do the dirty work, so to speak, no pun intended, and say what needs to be said. These guys are beholden to IGN and to a lot of these other places, so they don't really name drop them. It's the reason why you don't hear them say names, is because they're buddies with them.
Yep. Yes, again, it's a vicious cycle that continues to just turn, and it's the same ones talking the same nonsense, and we know that they have ties to one another, and they are gonna protect one another, and they won't call them out by names because that will ultimately hurt their bottom line. Let's see. I am Velez, or Velz, I should say. Thanks so much for being a channel member for 12 months. Super appreciate that, Velz. He says, journos like Tom Henderson, who say not to trust the words of Xbox, should be blocked. They are so easily believe 90 million shipped, and that PlayStation is healthy. Yeah, I mean, look, I talked about him yesterday, and I don't want to continue to pile on the rabbit. Tom Henderson, I don't know exactly what has happened with him, and this is all, you know, post showcase. He has like purposefully gone like after Xbox. I mean, I made mention of yesterday. I'm going to make a video of it later on today where I actually I have all the visual evidence ready to go. I just have to, you know, make it into a video format where I pull receipts. And normally I leave the receipt pulling till like Dirk Riggedy and Crispy Bomb and Joey Kraken and those guys. They pull receipts. I normally don't keep them. These I just happen to have because I was a little taken aback by his antics. So yeah, I mean, again, I've talked about Tom Henderson being at one point for me a reporter that I would go to. I don't use his stuff at all anymore, and I won't. And he doesn't need me. I mean, obviously, who the hell is BoomStick? Nobody, absolutely nobody. But I won't use any of his work. That's it. I'm done with him. And obviously, you know, when he goes out of his way to use his platform to besmirch Xbox, we know that he must have had a huge boon in like clicks and obviously finances, for, you know, shitting on Xbox, because that's ultimately how people make money. We see it all the time. So thanks so much, Velzy. Super appreciate that, brother. It's Me, the Broke Boy, drops an additional very generous $5 super chat. Will goes on to say, gaming media has reported more in the last few weeks about rumored Xbox layoffs and studio closures than actual PlayStation layoffs and closures. I mean, brother, that's what Umber was talking about. Like, that is literally it. Jamie made mention in his segment. There's been more coverage about a price increase for Xbox, and there should be. It's egregious. It's disgusting. Gaming has become unaffordable, and unfortunately, it's super bad timing because Asha just said in an interview with EW that gaming has become unaffordable, and now they raised the prices, and it's crazy. So of course, it should be reported. But I'm telling you right now, if you go again, if you don't believe me, folks, please don't believe me. Go do the work for yourself. Go take some time, and you don't even got to do the actual searching for yourself. Just go use ChatGPT, use Google, use something, type it in, right? And if you don't, you're too lazy to type it in, just speak it, and ask Google to find, or ask one of these AI chat bots to find all of the stories that, you know, about the price increase versus the layoffs for Bungie. It's going to be 5-1 in talking about the price increase for Xbox versus Sony laying off 400 people and gutting Bungie. And that's just the start of it. If you think that's where it starts and stops, you're wrong. They're going to lose. There's a rumor that they may close 4 studios. You got a lot of studios that haven't made anything in years for Sony. And again, you don't want to see anybody get their studio closed, but it could happen. We have Viper93 drops a very generous $5 super chat. He goes on to say, trusting IGN is like expected trusting an Xbox review from Push Square. I won't even get started on the IGN Call of Duty review debacle from the past 20 years. Yeah, I mean, look, IGN is a big conglomerate that, and you know what's funny? What's super funny is, remember last year when they bought up all of those websites? What did they do almost like 2 or 3 weeks after they purchased them? They closed most of them. Was there big stories about that in games media? Were other media outlets like, God damn it, you IGN, how dare you? You bought up all of these websites and you closed them all. Right? The big conglomerate got even bigger, and there was no pushback from games media whatsoever. Right? I mean, just food for thought. Mike the TV in the chat drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, ironic, bad journos give podcasters content. I mean, listen, it's normally not what we cover, but I mean, obviously it's a big story. You know what I'm saying? Their bad behavior becomes a talking point because I'm going to call it out. And I can tell you for an absolute fact, and I know this because I've been told this, some of my, you can call it antics, if you will, and that's fine, has closed doors. And I'm okay with that. I don't need anyone opening doors for me. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna show up 5 days a week here to Double Barrel Gaming, and we're gonna put our best foot forward. We're gonna use evidence-based conversation to have these talks, these discussions, and we're gonna talk about gaming in a fun way. Now, is this today's conversation fun? Not really, to be honest with you, but it's a conversation that we will continue to have. And I'm going to continue to have that because I will continue to call them out. I'm not going to sit on my hands because I'm worried about someone closing a door for me. You know what? Every door that's been opened so far, and there's been quite a few of them, we've earned every one of them. And we will continue to do so. So thank you so much for the super chat, Mike. And I hope that answers the question. But, gentlemen, let's talk about this bloodbath that is expected. Now, I have in front of me, and this is thanks to Infinite Umber who put this in the DM. His name is George Broussard, or Bro Assard. I believe that's how you pronounce it. He is a co-founder of the original 3D Realms and Apogee, He's published and funded and created many games, known for Duke Nukem 3D. He's a hobby. His hobby as an artist is obviously something that he does. And he loves adventure games. Okay, that's awesome, right? Well, look. He has a pretty big following. He has almost 23,000 people following him. He's been a part of Twitter since 2008. And he put out a tweet that is pretty detailed. So, I want to get into it. Now, gentlemen and chat, we've been hearing for the last, 2 weeks that this reset for Xbox, the next 100 days, was going to potentially be super bad for a lot of employees at Microsoft who work for Xbox. Right? We've heard, and there's been rumors, that Double Fine, Compulsion Games, and Ninja Theory were potentially studios that were going to be closed. Now, as of yesterday, we heard that Undead Labs could be next. And if Undead Labs closes, that means State of Decay 3, which is the header of today's show, is gone. Now, Jez had put out a tweet last week that I responded to in kind, where he was like, he was going to be pretty pissed if State of Decay 3 is canceled and the studio is closed, because he's in the alpha and it's one of his most anticipated games. And I really didn't put what he said last week into, was that a bit of a nudge? Did he tip his hand a bit of what he was hearing? Because he, again, it's just him saying that, he really is, liking what he's playing, what he wanted for a State of Decay game, and that he's enjoying it. That's awesome. And then we have this. Now, what I have in front of me real quick is, and I want to bring up, let me see if I can find it over here. Okay, so I originally was writing this story as something that Clobril had posted about all these things that they're doing in State of Decay 3. And I'm like, oh, man, that sounds really dope. I'm excited for this. And then, of course, we have the information that comes the way of Jez Corden, and I am going to pull it up right now. Now, the story that I have in front of me was posted by Idle Sloth, who has been super, super busy in the last couple of days. And again, Jason Schreier had responded to Undead Labs potentially closing. And I'm not going to read what Jason Schreier had to say because I want to use what Jez had to say. And thanks to Idle Sloth, who has the update here, he goes on to say that Jez Corden has also corroborated this information that one of the now new studios added to this conversation is in fact Undead Labs. Here's what Jez had to say. Quote, it coincides with information I received over the weekend. Indeed, Undead Labs could be among the studios Microsoft is looking to offload as part of its fiscal year end via Windows Central. And I will add, of course, all of these links into the show notes. And just real quick, again, we're going to get to Broussard right now, but Jez has in his article, Xbox has been promising State of Decay 3 for years, and now it could be facing cancellation despite its trailers and alpha. And he asks, what are we even doing here? And, well, I have to agree with him on that. But look, let me read George Broussard's tweets, and we're going to bring in the panel to get their hot takes on this, upcoming potential bloodbath chat. George goes on to say this. JFC just got word on a list of Xbox studio closures. And in parentheses, no, I'm not posting now. If it's even close to true, and he goes on to say, and it's from inside of Xbox, this will likely be the largest single layoff event in gaming history. Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen. That is terrifying. Well, let me read you what else George had to say. Xbox is going to be, quote, supremely unpopular for a very long time, and the devastation is going to reverberate like the meteor that took out the dinosaurs. On top of all of that, there will also be layoffs at the studios that remain. So besides the studio closures and game cancellations, for everyone that's still left around, and we don't know how many that's going to be, there's going to be layoffs. This could be thousands of actual human beings that don't have a job. Now, this is where he gets very specific. And again, folks, I don't know who George is. So I say take everything with a grain of salt. But I want to read what he wrote. George goes on to say this in caps, or at least it's capped. Xbox layoffs are imminent. According to insiders, Microsoft is finalizing its major Xbox layoff decisions by Tuesday, 6 Thursday, with cuts set to begin Monday, 7/6. Now, this leads to the rumor that all of this information was not going to drop on the day of the fiscal year ending, which is today, that it would happen, or the axe would fall, so to speak. At least that's how it's been coined, in the first week of July. And well, that kind of lines up with George is saying. He goes on to say the July timing is not a coincidence. Microsoft's fiscal year closes June 30th, making early July a standard window for restructuring as new budgets take effect. Microsoft did exactly the same thing last year, cutting 9,000 jobs company-wide in July of 2025. And he goes on to say, unverified, treat this as a rumor pending official confirmation. So I'll go first here to Umbra, who put this into the DM. Umbra, I can tell you this. Look, I don't want to get overly dramatic. Reading that obviously hurts my heart. I have always used my podcasting responsibility as a human element first caster. I love gaming. I love consoles. I love this community. But what we don't normally talk about is who makes these experiences for us. All right, like how lucky, and again, not to go on a tangent before I bring Umber in, but I always count myself as being one of the most lucky people I know. Not for finances, I'm not even close for that. I'm just talking about as a gamer, right? Now, there are a lot of graybeards in this chat, right, that have been following the channel since we started way back almost 9 years ago, this November. And you all remember getting your first Coleco, your Atari, Pong even, right? And I always say this, and I always consider myself a very lucky gamer, that I started out with sticks and dots, and now I'm getting games that look like Grand Theft Auto 6 and Gears of War E-Day, and I'm in awe where it was and where it is. And one of the things that really does get left out of the conversation more times than not is who makes these things, who puts these experiences on our TVs. And what's happening in this industry is just disgusting. Thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. And the truth of the matter is where do they go? What do they do? I don't have the answer to that. But you know what? Let's talk about the impending, quote, bloodbath that's expected at Xbox Game Studios. Now, look, this is happening throughout the industry, but we're here to put Xbox in the spotlight because we should. this is an Xbox show, and right now Xbox is going to drop the axe as soon as next Monday, if they haven't already. I know that Compulsion Games has reported that they have said to everyone at the studio, yes, you have permission, go look for work. That means that studio is pretty much DOA. I mean, that's my assumption, but it's not looking good if they're telling their talent, hey, go somewhere else. Umbra, let's talk about what George had to report, man.
So with George, I want to point out something, by the way, because you just got a super chat for it too. Tom Warren just posted something about this, but I'll go into it in a second.
Okay.
With George here, to be fair to him, he is saying take it with a grain of salt. He's not saying, hey, take my word and run with it, right? He's saying take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And again, he could just be talking out of his butt.
Rear.
Yeah, right. He could just be saying things, and his source could be invalid. But we do know a lot is about to go down. There's no two ways about this. However you want to quantify bloodbath, I guess is up to you. But remember, everyone, there were 9,000 layoffs from Xbox last year, or from Microsoft, should I say, right? 9,000. I would quantify that as a bloodbath. That's a lot of lost jobs, right? As bad as the naming of that, convention may be to call it a bloodbath, that's, it might be insensitive to say it that way, but that is quantifiably bad, right? Yes, it's me, broke boy. Credit to him, his super chat that wanted it out first. And he said, at least I got credit for it. Absolutely, brother. But so I think what he's saying here is just really what we're continuously hearing from, people who we even trust, from the Tom Warrens, maybe, and the Jezzes. They are saying a lot of the same things. This is not, something.
The consensus is very close, for sure.
Exactly. With Tom Warren's post here, if you would allow me to read a bit of it.
Please, by all means, go ahead, sir.
His article says the Xbox weighs canceling Blade game and shuttering Arcane. It says Microsoft is set to announce a wave of layoffs for its Xbox studios and employees next week. Sources familiar with Microsoft's plan tell The Verge that the layoffs will lead to studio closures or spinoffs, potentially mergers of studios and canceled games. He says, I understand Microsoft is currently weighing closing at least 5 studios, including the developers behind Marvel's Blade. Sources tell me Microsoft wants to cancel Blade as part of a wave of cost cuts and job losses that are planned for the company's Xbox gaming division. Developed by France-based Arcane Studios, best known for the Dishonored series, Blade was originally supposed to debut later this year, according to sources familiar with the game's development. I'm told the internal ship date for the game slipped to late 2027, and it's also running over budget. While Microsoft is weighing canceling Blade, it's also exploring options to sell Arcane Studios. Bloomberg reported earlier this month that Microsoft is trying to spin off Compulsion, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory 2. GamesBeat reported earlier this week that Microsoft is actively looking for a buyer for Undead Labs, the developers behind State of Decay. If buyers are found for these studios, then they'll avoid being closed. But sources stress that these talks could take months in some cases. I don't want to go further than that for it because I'll be dragging it on. But all of that to say,
that's 5 studios right there, brother. That's bad.
That's not good. And I was somewhat worried for the Blade. The only reason I started getting worried about the Blade thing is because they closed down the other Arcane. So I was kind of like, they did that for them.
They got one, why not the other? Yeah, it's gross. Yeah.
And even with Blade being in development, I'm like, well, surely they wouldn't do that well. Blade is highly anticipated. And then we heard about, Senua with Ninja Theory. So it's like, sheesh, it's not out of possibility now, if that's the case. So again, obviously, until we get the actual facts, of course, we all have to take it with a grain of salt. But it is not looking good, I would say. And I don't know how it's all going to shake out. I really don't. But if history tells us anything, again, there were thousands of jobs lost last year.
Yep.
We may face something very similar to that this year, unfortunately, these devs and such. So,
you know what? I want to hand you back the microphone in a second, but folks, I have to say this out loud, right? Like, I'm an optics guy. I will always be an optics guy. If you take Xbox as a whole, it doesn't have such a great reputation right now, right? I mean, obviously, Asha has done some pretty incredible things in the first 100 days. But if we just pause, what could potentially happen here? If Undead Labs closes, they can't find a buyer, and State of Decay 3 is halted, which I think is a terrible mistake. You're going to have, and I've seen the sentiment online. I'm not going to repeat who said this. And some people were being a bit facetious, and some people are actually being truthful. That's 2 games that were shown at the showcase that the studios are gone, and those games are gone also. You know how bad of a PR hit that is? I mean, again, being just an optics guy. Like Senua, when I saw it, I was like, holy wow. That's exactly what we've been asking for. And they're gone, potentially. We saw State of Decay 3. I mean, that was a pretty stout trailer that they showed. I'm like, wow, that looks really good. The alpha's going on, right? Next year, it's coming out. They're showing games for the next 12 months. I mean, sometime in 2020. And if that's gone too, wow. This is on the cusp of the last cuts that we had where Perfect Dark, which we saw, which was a game that we saw that was also canceled. I just think, look, I don't know how you can do this and not look bad, but Umbra, this is 5 studios, and I think Double Fine, they're like the oldest, they're like an OG, like one of the graybeards in this chat. They've been around the industry forever. You close them? Wow, that's tough, man. I don't even, I very rarely get speechless. This is one of those instances as a human being, these 5 studios could be gone. It's just, to me, it's disgusting. Please continue.
It's just unfortunate, man. It's sad. And like you said, with Double Fine, they've been around since 2000, quite literally 26 years.
Yes.
I think the best case scenario, to give someone, I guess, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, I think, is that they are actively in talks to try to spin these people off.
I would love them to go independent again. Absolutely. I don't know if that's possible.
And that's the best case. Like,
yes,
it could work out. We've seen it work out. Tango has done it. Microsoft did it with Toys
Tango. For Bob did it last year.
Bob absolutely did it. So it's not unheard of. And I believe that Double Fine and Ninja Theory for sure could do that, right? I'm pretty certain that they could spin off and be independent for a fact. I would wonder about Arcane and how they would do it. I'm sure they could too. I don't know how they would structure it, and maybe they would have to, like they were saying, devs band together or whatever, maybe to create a new studio. Who knows? But I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think it's going to be terrible because of, we had so much promise with all these studios that they picked up over the years, only for, so many of them now to be shuttered or to lose out on them, or the games to be canceled. And it's like, what happened? And
yeah,
the only thing I can think is there had to be some blatant mismanagement behind the scenes for a lot of these games to not have made it after 8 or 8 years in development all this time. And now this is the case, right? I'm not saying like, oh, things couldn't go wrong. I know it was a lot of different issues, COVID and all these things. I know, I get it. It just seems like there is some mismanagement here and there too. I'm still questionable about Booty personally.
What I've been seeing online, and again, folks, I'm only reading what's being printed. And this isn't from any publication. I have seen, and I've been in conversations where a lot of people are blaming Matt Booty for this. He was running the show. I mean, again, I don't know for sure, but he was handed a promotion, and he's an integral part in what Xbox is going to be doing moving forward. But you do got to ask the question, if it does seem like there was a lot of waste when it came to making these games. You made mention games being in development for, 8 years and there's still nothing.
Yeah, it's
right?
ridiculous. I mean, we had
Yeah.
the same. Literally, we just mentioned it with Joanna Dark with
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect Dark.
Yep.
Like, come on, like we had such promise with that. We had the whole what's their name, the initiative in general. Like, obviously it was a misprint for the quadruple A game thing, but all this major promise this had, and it's like nothing now. It's just nothing. It's just, what was the point? I don't understand how that happens like that. And all that time wasted, something's going to have to give where they restructure in general how they get these games out, right? And I don't know if Booty is the one for the job or not. Maybe it's not his fault. I don't know. I just feel like when things start going wrong like that, we typically have to go to the head of that situation, and he would be the one who would be the head of that. Which is, I was still puzzled when, Sarah, has departed. I'm like, why is Matt Booty still here? So that was my thought, and I said it many times over, like, when it happened. I'm like, huh? What's the rationale with her being gone, but Matt Booty still being there? That didn't make sense to me. But hey, maybe some things we just don't know and understand. That maybe he's doing his job well. I don't know. But somebody mentioned it with Amy Hood. Absolutely, Amy Hood doesn't play. She wants that money, man. They said, listen, we come hell or high water, you're gonna get us down to enough where the cost for getting what you got to get out are going to make sense to us, right? It's pretty clear. When we speak about, Asha was saying, like, there's no mandate. I don't know if she was fully truthful there, right? I think there is some type of mandate.
There has to be something there.
Yeah, because obviously otherwise this wouldn't be happening. So there is that, I think she may have been a little boastful right there, but there is something clearly the people over you, Amy Hoods and Satya, are saying, no, this is still going to happen this way. Okay, you need to cut this, right? Otherwise this wouldn't happen. And when we look at the whole, that's why I was still weary on the whole wording of the reset. When I hear reset, my mind goes to what are the thing you're going back to, right? Like, you're restarting. That's what it sounds like to me. And to be fair to Microsoft here, they overhired during a period of time. So, like,
them along with everyone else, but they really overhired.
They did.
Yes.
So a lot of this seems worse than what it should be. Not to give them any coverage. I mean, because they're a multi-trillion-dollar company. But I know business doesn't work like that. I get it. I know if I was running it, I'd probably put them out of business. I get it. I don't want to talk like I understand all of that. I'm just simply saying. It hurts to know that, like, all these the trillions of dollars this company has, and it's like, oh, we got to get rid of people. We can't afford it. It's like, can't you though? But regardless of that, I know it's about profitability. I know they got to make money. I get it, man.
You know what it seems like, Umbra? You know what it seems? I'm going to bring Jamie in a second, but what it seems like, and again, from an optics point of view, 5 studios, that's a lot of people. That's hundreds of people from these studios. When you talk about Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Compulsion, right? Those 3, they had games come out that didn't sell, including Hellblade 2, which I absolutely adored. Right? Thought it was fantastic. I played through it twice. And then, of course, you add on the back end of that conversation something like Undead Labs, who's only put out, I think, 2 games in 9 years. Right? And this game is promising because it lines up with what Xbox does really good that Sony wants to do, and that's like gas game. Yeah, yes, it's not like a 1-to-1, but I would imagine that they're going to add gas game elements to it, or they would have if it comes to fruition. And then, of course, you add Arcane. Now, you said they got rid of one half of Arcane. This was what's left. They're working on a licensed IP, and that licensed IP comes with a 35% of everything type of deal because it's Marvel and Disney. And, it's Blade. I know who Blade is. I can't wait for it. But I did see a lot of people, questioning what this thing was going to ultimately look like. Because, people want it to look like Wolverine, but it's not. It's going to look like an Arcane game. And Maybe that's what's taking so long. They're behind. They're over budget. Is it worth continuing? So that's 5 studios that have either put out something that didn't sell, that sold really bad, or didn't put anything out at all, and that's why they're closing. Is it right? No, it's mismanagement. And you made mention of it. I mean, who ultimately is to blame for not getting on top of these studios? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, Umbra.
Yeah, sorry that the mic muted, but yeah, I don't know who's to blame, man. And I know a lot of this is guesswork from our end, right? So I don't want to cast too many aspersions, but I mean, when you have all this happening like this, somebody done effed up, right? Something went wrong somewhere.
I mean, that's obvious, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't keep having all these games just not coming out. It doesn't make sense. For 8 years of development, this is AAA development time for some games that are not even necessarily AAA. I don't understand this. I guess State of Decay 3 is now AAA, but if that doesn't come out, man, if they shutter that and that really doesn't come out, I don't even know what to say. I would. Can you imagine the brand damage that will do to have all that happen with these layoffs too, and the game is not even coming out, and that'll be what, 3 or 4 games that are just not coming out that they promised?
Dude, you had made mention of that. They need to stop doing that. They need to stop showing games at a showcase that don't show up. And what do? Ninja Theory's games, potentially State of Decay games at the showcase. They literally took up a spot, and they might actually release. Just insane.
Yeah,
absolutely
they
insane.
have to release their game. I mean, I know that maybe it's just mixed messaging, and it's probably that they're trying to shop them around. Maybe that's the case. And the game is still coming out. Senua is still coming out, right? So, or at least I hope. But it just looks terrible. Just like you said, from an optics standpoint. I know you say your optics guy. This is terrible on the optics, right? And again, we don't know enough, so I can't go with anything. I'm just saying, like, we know there are some bad things that are about to happen. Yeah. And I would only wonder, like, what do they do to try to get themselves on a reliable track for game releases and things like that going forward? They can't keep happening with this reset. Somebody had mentioned it, like the reset means going back to Halo, Gears, and Forza. And I really, as much as I love those 3, hope it's not just that, but that does kind of feel like where they're headed. And I just hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, you can add Fable to that, because obviously Playground Games they're cooking, right?
That's an incoming W. That's a fact.
Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? Great. I mean, great points all around, Umbra. We have to sit and wait. Obviously, we did start with saying, take George's post here as with a grain of salt, right? But people continue to report. People that I trust. Tom Warren, I trust. Jez Corden, I trust. Xbox Era, or day one and now. John and those guys, when they put, I trust them. I know them. Those are actual journals that I know one-to-one. So when you're starting to see, Jamie Moran, a concentrated effort of news that's coming out where this, rumored bloodbath is happening. 5 studios is a bloodbath. 5 studios could encompass 600, 700, 800 humans. Games that have been worked on for 5, 6, 8 years, just gone, right? More fodder, if you will. I was very excited for Perfect Dark. That's not coming out. That's gone, right? Senua got us all excited because that is what we were all wanted Senua to be. This action adventure, God of War-esque type of situation. I was like, yo, that is what I've been asking for. And we're not getting it, apparently. And Blade, I'm a Marvel stan, folks. You know that. Like, what did I say when we were talking about Blade? When the art director said, "Let us cook," a couple of weeks ago, I just talked about this. What'd I tell you? I'm like, this could lead into the Midnight Suns from the comics, start out with Blade. Maybe they get a cameo from Moon Knight or Ghost Rider. I have all these aspirations because I'm a fanboy. I'm a Marvel guy. I'm like, oh my God. You have Doomsday. Blade just made his first appearance with Wesley Snipes reprising the role, and Deadpool and Wolverine. Everyone was excited. I'm like, this is great. And that studio might be gone. And to Umbra's point, Jamie, the best case scenario here is that some, at least, of these studios get an opportunity to either buy themselves out from under Microsoft and Xbox, like Toys for Bob, and that they still work with them, and something like State of Decay can still come out. I don't know. The Blade thing, I think that's gone because of the price of admission. People didn't, and Sony won't tell you this. They were paying 25%, or they were giving or sending over 25% of every sale of every game to Disney. And when they bundled it, when Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 were bundled, they were giving, and they had to, of every sale, $25. And they sold a lot of consoles. That's a lot of money they had to give off to Marvel. And Xbox is probably looking at this and saying, yeah, man, we don't, they increased that to 35%. It was last year or the year before. So now it's 35% of every sale goes to Disney because of that licensed IP. And probably because they're behind, probably because there's been some rumors, again, take it with a grain of salt, that the game isn't running really well for Blade and what Arcane is doing. And who knows? Maybe that's another 2, 3, 4 years of development. Xbox is like, yep, we're not going to do that. And this is the problem. Jamie, what are your thoughts on the report from George on regards to this rumored bloodbath?
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, look, at the minute it's just rumors. It does blatantly look like something's about to happen. And look, these games are taking. This is what it basically boils down to. These games are taking way too long to make. This is an industry-wide thing. And before I get to that part again, we all like to think, oh, Microsoft has unlimited amounts of money. We've heard that. Amy Hood is one of the reasons why Xbox has its ups and downs. The truth is, the game industry is in a weird place at the minute. A lot of if you have a game come out, it's only going to do well if it's 1 or 2 games. It's either a small indie game that goes super viral, or it's a AAA game that people love. Right? Everything else in between doesn't really make any money. And you have these smaller games come out, maybe the new IPs or the experimental games, and no one talks about them. Like, look at Kiln, right, by Double Fine, right? A pottery-based party brawling game. How many years was that in development? How many people are playing it right now? Just things like that. These AAA games taking way too long to make. And this is an industry thing. This isn't just an Xbox thing. Like, we used to get sequels to games every 2 years, 3 years. And now, like, if you play a game today that you love, you're not going to get a sequel, maybe, for another 8 years. Right? That's crazy. And, I think the Xbox reset thing might be playing into this, because my opinion on what the Xbox reset is kind of undo the damage of the past 2 years and kind of make Xbox how it used to be during the original Xbox and the 360 days, where the concentration, and I don't mean just Halo, Forza, Gears. I mean the concentration of Xbox as a brand was just about the Xbox console. By the way, I'm not talking about removing PC games.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
before anyone clips that. But I think they're going to have the sole focus back onto the console, where like they're going to talk about Xbox as a console, not just as a platform. And I feel that we stopped getting console updates for the longest time, and now we are. Console talk is the focus now, and I feel like they want to get back to that, but having, I think, 35 studios, a lot of which are taking 8+ years to to make a game. Like, I never even thought about this. Like, as someone that covers State of Decay, I never actually realized that, oh yeah, State of Decay 2 came out in 2018. Like, that was a long time ago, right? And, you know, State of Decay 3 was shown off, in 2020, I think, or 2021, when we were all stuck in the house. And that game was just, you know, pre-alpha at that point. And here you are now, like years later, and we've seen the game. It looks great, but like, how much does that game cost to make? You know, look at Compulsion Games, right? Compulsion Games, they've made 3 games in 13 years, which is crazy if you think about it. Their first game didn't do too well. The second game, We Happy Few, I think did okay. And their new game, South of Midnight, which was really good, it's won a bunch of awards. Like, the fact that cost $100 million blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a lot, dude.
That's a lot of money. And gun to my head, I could never have guessed that game cost that much, because it's a shorter game, you know. It's like a 6 to 7 hour game. So like, it kind of blew me away, that information. So like, the industry as a whole, I think it's going to be shrinking. You know, you have thousands of games arrive on these stores each year, most of which don't get talked about, and you have these platform holders which are struggling to try and make a profit on each game, because if a game takes 7 to 8 years to make, that's hundreds of people's wages being paid every single year for 8 years. And then there's, like, I even heard with the Bungie thing, like, they had like 5 different games in incubation. And then, you know, games would be cancelled after a year. That means thousands of man hours put down the toilet, you know. And, you know, you mentioned the whole, like, Marvel thing. Like, the fact that Sony have to pay, like, was it 25% or something to Marvel? Like, we don't know what Microsoft has to pay that for Blade. And by the way, I'm looking forward to Blade. Yeah, I kind of got burnt out on Marvel because of Phase 4 and 5, but like, I'm looking forward to the game. And I think they're a good developer for a game like that. But like, what was their last game? Deathloop? I think it was Deathloop.
Yes.
And yeah, and that game launched exclusively on PlayStation 5. I don't personally know how well it sold, but like, I didn't see much talk about it. And I think that, you know, Microsoft, I don't want to sound harsh. I think it's just my tone of voice. But like, I think that Microsoft doing this reset, they're wanting to maybe condense their studios into making trying to make surefire hits that maybe take less time to make. Like, look at Asha Sharma. She was talking about how they want to make you know, Fallout and the Elder Scrolls like more regular games, right? Because it's ridiculous you have to wait over a decade in between titles, right? So to me, that's what I think's happening. And I don't want any of these studios to be there. I think they all make fantastic games, but this industry's going through a bloody rocky start, you know, or something. Just the industry's in a mess at the minute. Like, I've mentioned this before. Embracer shut down 44 studios. Like, it's bad. It's bad at the minute. And, you know, the price of and this is another thing that plays into it. The price of hardware going up. The price of next gen hardware is probably going to be. It's gonna be a lot. You're gonna have be less people buying into games consoles because they cost too much.
Yep.
Games cost more to make. Video games are going up in price because I guarantee you, because of Grand Theft Auto, other developers are looking at raising the price. So that means you're gonna have less people buying games, less people buying consoles. So it's like a snake eating its own tail, you know, less people buying games on those consoles. And I think you're going to see a huge shift in the game industry where you're going to see a lot less studios around. Because this game industry, it's not sustainable at all. I know when all this news drops, or if it does, you're going to see people try and blame Game Pass, and if they do that, they, you know, smooth brain people, because it's the industry's it's crap. The industry's in a terrible state at the minute. Like, if development time went back to how it was in the 7th gen with, like, you know, 2 to 3 year cycles, I don't think most of this would be an issue at the minute. You know, hardware would be because of the whole RAM stuff, but like, the fact that games take that long to make, and like, you have to have a surefire hit out of the gate. for these games to be profitable. Like The Witcher 4 is guaranteed to make money. We can all agree,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2
Yeah.
prints
Those-
money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those games are going to print money. But The Witcher 4 has supposedly a $400 million budget, right? So that game out of the gate needs to be a success. It will be. I'll be there day one. Can't wait for The Witcher 4. Slap Witcher anything on the box, I'll buy it. But like, not all games are like that. And it was funny, yesterday on my feed, I saw someone say that, you know, Microsoft and Sony need to copy Nintendo. And I burst out laughing, not in a mean way, because like Nintendo can make a game about a horse shoveling crap with a cutie art style, and it would sell 20 million copies. You know, and I mean that in a nice way. Like, Nintendo's first party games sell ridiculous numbers, and if other companies had those sales figures, there would be no studios getting shut down. That's why you never hear about Nintendo layoffs. Their games sell mad.
Yep.
And you know, we're going to see this from Microsoft. You know, where they're going to have less studios. I think we're going to see way less experimental games in the future. You know, no more kilns, no more pentiments. You know, and I think there may be more of a focus on making games that, you know, like more requested games. You know, like IP that people want bringing back, or, you know, existing franchises that already have existing fan bases. But this bloodbath, I hate using the term because this is actual people. It's sad. It's sad if it's true. It's just, I think, you know, the whole industry is kind of in need for a reset. And I've been saying for like 2 years that I legitimately think that the game industry is heading towards a crash. I want to be wrong, but I'm scared that I'm right. So I think, you know, in the next 18 months, there's going to be a huge gaming crash on the AAA side, because this isn't sustainable. Again, these 8-year dev cycles, right? I'll bring up another game that had a lot of anticipation, right? Dragon Age: The Veil of God, right? Whether people like that or not, that game was in development for a long time, and they made it as a live service game first, and then when they saw Jedi Survivor did well, and these, you know, EA saw that, hey, single player games can make money, they had to completely retool the game, basically redo everything they did at that point, and then do it as a single player game.
Yeah.
And that game was in development for so long, and it barely made a dent on any storefront. Nobody played it. And let me tell you, as a BioWare fan, I played it, and I was like, I can't put myself through this, right? That game was in development for, I think that was in development for 8 years. And
might have been that long. It was a long development cycle for that game. It did not sell at all.
It didn't sell at all. And I mean, Dragon Age, by the way, Dragon Age as an IP is done. We're not going to get any more Dragon Age games,
which is a shame, because
and you know, we're going to see that across the whole industry, where like one of these games comes out and it doesn't do well, takes 8 years to make, and it gets sunset as an IP. I mean, hell, people that follow me for a while may know this. I kind of like Mass Effect. The same thing actually happened.
Think?
Yeah. Shocker to all. But like, the same thing actually happened to Mass Effect back in 2017, where Mass Effect Andromeda absolutely bombed. Those developers were twiddling their thumbs making this game for 5 years, right? But the game we got, after all these developers were being paid for every day they were there for 5 years, the game we got was made in 18 months, right? And it absolutely bombed. Nobody bought it. In fact, there were so many copies in supermarkets and game stores that there were literally stacks of them on the counter, and they were basically giving them away, right? It was that bad. I honestly thought they were going to open up a new landfill and do it sort of, you know, ET style.
Oh, I was going to say an ET style.
And and like, as a franchise, Mass Effect was actually put onto hold. I think EA called it hiatus, right? Mass Effect as a franchise was going into hiatus. Thankfully, I was already in a pub when I found out that information, because my God, that hit hard. Now, due to other things, Mass Effect actually came back. But like, as a whole, we're going to see this across the industry. You're going to see less big licensed games. You know, Sony, like, they have relationships with Marvel, so they can kind of do superhero games, but we don't know how much, you know, those games are costing now. Maybe they worked out a different deal, but like, what we're seeing at the minute is an industry-wide collapse of big titles. And it's scary. It's scary because 5 years from now we're all going to have these $1,500 next gen consoles. You're going to have less developers with dev kits. Developers will be making more games for lower based hardware, and we're going to see cross generation games for the next decade. So yeah, the whole situation's a joke. But I hope everyone that gets let go, they get picked up by someone else soon. And ideally, these studios can be, sold off or become independent if it happens.
I mean, that ultimately that's the best case scenario for a lot of these studios, that they allow them to go back to being independent, just like Toys for Bob, who we know have a hit game coming out, and just based on the numbers that we talked about it yesterday, there were over 16 million views for the next Spyro game. People are excited. So Toys for Bob ultimately is that they're independent. They're working with on a brand that they know. They don't own it obviously because Microsoft owns it, but they are supposedly in early stages of a new Crash, which will sell very well. My dream is that that they do a Banjo, which they want to do. They've said it publicly. We don't know if it's going to happen. But that's what I'm hoping for, is that at least you give these studios an opportunity to go find, a buyer or go independent and release a game that isn't under the umbrella of Microsoft, and they allow them to continue on. Closing all of these studios, which we now have in front of us, is upwards of 5 studios. And that's why we continue to call it a bloodbath. And again, we'll know more as the week progresses. But as we get closer to the holiday, which is July 4th, at least here in the country, I don't know if the news is going to drop on the 3rd, which would be Friday, or when everyone comes back from vacation, which is, again, thanks to George, he has a rumor, again, take it with a grain of salt, that all of this information, these studio closures on the Xbox side of things, could be announced on the 6th, which would be Monday of next week. We're going to have to sit back and just let things play out how they play out. But look, gentlemen, let me catch up on Super Chats, and then we'll get everyone out of here. It's me, the Broke Boy, drops an additional very generous $2 Super Chat. Says, just sent you the Tom Warren article and messages. Yeah, brother, thank you so much for that. I just saw that. And someone had asked, did we talk about Blade briefly? We'll get more into it as I get it. We're probably going to, talk about it tomorrow at some point with Hargeet and Keasante for Primetime Gaming. And I have to I got to read the story. I got to see what Tom is saying. Thanks to Umber, who read a good portion of it. I have an idea, but I want to get some more specifics. And I'm starting to see that other publications are now starting to print it and run with it. So it's likely, because Tom Warren reported it first, that he has really good sources. We'll see what happens. Judah Roars drops a very generous $5 super chat. He says, from what we're hearing, these studios have been an absolute mess, and they also want to distance themselves from Phil and Sarah's plans. Look, again, Judah, I don't know who's to blame for all the. Look, let me just say this, and this is a blanketed statement, because I don't know who is responsible. But the mismanagement of these studios is blatantly obvious, right? No pulling punches here. They were mismanaged, and they were mismanaged in a way where you have someone like Asha coming in, and when she says she's doing a reset, she's doing an absolute reset. She's going through every one of these books, and they are cutting spending on games that have been in development 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they're gone. Who's to blame ultimately? Is it Phil? Is it Sarah? Is it Matt Booty? I couldn't tell you. So that's why I'm using the blanketed statement. Somebody is responsible for egregious mismanagement at these studios. And now, because of that mismanagement, people are going to lose their jobs. Games are going to be shut down. And Xbox is going to have another black eye. I don't know how many black eyes they can take before they go blind, but this is going to be bad. Dan Lazaro. Dan, great to see you here, brother. Thanks so much for being a channel member for 4 months. Dan goes on to say, Sati and Amy are sabotaging Asha. I wouldn't be surprised if she steps down soon. It's just too much bad news. Not much in the economy. Not much in this economy will survive. You know, I mean, look, there's a lot of bad news, Dan. There's no doubt about it. Asha's here to do a job, and she is going to do it to a great degree. And unfortunately, at the great degree that I'm expecting her to levy towards Xbox Game Studios, it's you're going to see a lot of studio closures. You're going to see game cancellations, and ultimately, the human element that is the most important thing is jobs are going to be wiped out. And we have the numbers. Last year, it was 9,000 Microsoft, 9,000 humans, man, lost their job. That's holy cow. That's a lot.
And apparently, to break it down, I guess it was about 1,000 from Xbox itself,
yes,
but it was 9,000 total from Microsoft.
Just insane. We have Gamer by Choice been wow. I didn't even know the channel's been around this long. So this is crazy. We make 9 years, November 3rd. Well, Gamer by Choice has been supporting us for 81 months. Holy freaking cow, brother. That is insane. Thank you, Gamer by Choice, for the redonkulous support after all these years. He says console wars can be fun, but people are overlooking the overall industry. Does not seem healthy. Studios closing, games being canceled, new and niche games being replaced with sequels and remasters. And he's not wrong. And I would say that you can expect remasters to be a big push forward for everyone. Nintendo is doing one with Ocarina of Time. Is Sony doing one? I don't know. I know that there was a story that broke yesterday that they Naughty Dog chose to do Last of Us instead of Uncharted. I would have really loved an Uncharted 1 remake. Oh my God, I would definitely pay for that. Motorstorm is another one I'd love to see them remake. Xbox has a few remakes that they're working on. Well, through Bethesda, right? The rumor is Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. I would love to see that. Listen, I'm okay with remakes. My brother doesn't like them, but I'm okay with them. But let's get everyone out of here. I'll start first with Jamie Moran. Obviously, Jamie, you're not feeling so great, so there's not going to be a new show of the All Things Xbox podcast tonight, but there will be one at some point this week. Sell the brand. Where can people subscribe to the Jamie Moran YouTube channel or the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel? More importantly, follow you on the socials to find out when the next episode is happening.
Yeah, thanks, Boom. It's always a pleasure. So the room is spinning at the minute. So no podcast tonight, but we should be on tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel. But until then, I have a video going up tonight, which is positive. And if people are looking for a positive Xbox video, that's, positive, I've got you covered. A lot of cool things coming to Xbox, and that should be live on my YouTube channel, The Elusive Gamer, in about 3 to 4 hours.
Nice.
And All Things Xbox podcast is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. And other than that, I do social media, which is Twitter, and that's Jamie Man UK, and that's exclusively gaming and jokes.
Well, appreciate you being here, brother. Even though you weren't feeling good, you knocked it out of the park. Bro, let's sell the brand, brother. The Fix is going to have a lot to talk about in the next 24 to 48 hours. Sell the brand of where people can tune in to not only hear you, Daniel J. McGee, and Crusader, but where can they subscribe and obviously support your YouTube channel by also follow you on social media?
Indeed. Jamie, hope you feel better, brother. No doubt. Chat, all love to you guys for being here and holding us down, even though I know some of you are having to get the emotions in check. I see you. It's a tumultuous time. As far as myself, Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite, you'll find me either way. As Boom pointed out, Thursdays at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, my time, for The Fix. Myself, Daniel J. McGee, and Crusader. We have a really good time over there. I hope you guys come by. We want to talk about that House of Dragons. I know some people are watching it. and some haven't seen it yet. Listen,
Mrs. Boom and
phenomenal
I have
show.
only seen one episode, and we never watched Game of Thrones.
Well, the first season, or
no, just anything, any of them, and we are Tolkien fans, and people like you guys got to watch this stuff. We tried to watch it, and we watched like the first 1 or 2 episodes. Like, yeah, this is just not for us. I don't know what it was.
Well, I mean, that was the first. You talking about the first Game of Thrones ever?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, listen, that first episode was so good. Even on the first episode of Game of Thrones, I don't know how I didn't catch you, but it is what it is sometimes, right? But I will say, this House of the Dragon, I think, it speaks more toward at least early on, toward it gives you more of the Tolkien vibes, because you see the dragons and such doing their thing. You will. Well, let me shut up. But you like I said, this I can't give too much away. I'll just say that the original Game of Thrones didn't end well, right? It really did. It failed in the last season and a half.
No.
but this new one, the one that's set like hundreds of years or whatever, 100+ years before the first iteration of Game of Thrones, right? Is set back before that happens, and it is, man. If you see the CGI and things they're doing in here, listen. Anyway. That said, and yes, I would agree, Tolkien is better than Martin in general, but Martin is not terrible either. I don't want to throw shade at the brother. But that said, also we did the first annual GTA 6 fundraiser, as you all.
Oh, nice! How'd that go, brother?
It did pretty well.
Okay, nice.
Because I listen, I have to be a man of integrity of my word, Boom. And I said I would not pay $100 or $80 for a game. And I got a lot of slack from Kay and the guys, right? Like, they were all like, oh, well, yeah, you really kind of skirting and you being Listen, all I said is that I wouldn't pay for it. I didn't say I wouldn't get it.
Yes, I mean, and that's being very specific, sir. So yeah. I agree with you there. Yes.
Don't be mad at me because you didn't read the fine print. So I relied on our lovely community to fund that, and right now I'm at 70 right now on the old YouTube. So for the YouTube to pay out, you got to get over 100. So I encourage all of my great community here, my beloved community, our beloved community, to come by this Thursday so we can get the second annual day out of the way.
Yes,
and get that funding
let's
going.
Get him past.
Yes, let's get past 100. Come
now,
on,
you got to remember, just for S and G's here, you need technically 130 because Google takes 30% right off the top.
Good point. Yeah.
So if you get to 100, you're still only at 70.
That's a great point, actually. You know what? You hit it right on the head. So community,
so he needs 150, ladies and gentlemen, to get out the door and get his $100 attention. So come on, folks, tune in and show up and show out.
Kage say, you grimy bastard. Respect. Absolutely. Listen, I know what I'm doing is shady as hell, but I need you guys' support. I give to the community all the time. I've given away games and money and everything else. I just need a little help this time. I sound like some type of drug addict or something. I just need a little help, baby.
Just tap in the arm.
Just this once.
I mean, technically it is GTA, so you wouldn't be wrong.
For sure. But yeah, I would hope that you guys come by. Just drop a $1 or $2 won't hurt, right? $2, $3, $10. Whatever you can give, I will be very appreciative of it. But yeah, we go live this Thursday. I want you guys to come by. I'll be posting about it soon enough. But yeah, thank you all for being here, though. Boom. Thanks, of course, always for holding a brother down.
Well, appreciate you being here, gentlemen. Chat, thank you so much. We had almost 600 people watching live. And again, it's just one of those, it's not the greatest time to be a caster, right? Like, get into podcasting. The industry is on the cusp of imploding. It's funny. I don't want to hold this up anymore. I just sent this to the DM. IO Interactive just posted that they're going to have to lay people off. And mind you, they're coming off of, James Bond, which is like still in the running for my game of the year. And apparently, according to what they posted on the socials, and I sent this, you can use this as a talking point, Jamie or Umbra, that their external partner for Project Fantasy has come to an end. They pulled out. So they're going to have to figure out. They're saying that Project Fantasy is still happening, but they're going to have to make some fiscal decisions because they can't keep the team because that funding is gone.
That sucks.
So, and mind you, this is IO Interactive that just James Bond, if you didn't know, is an amazing game and sold really well.
Yep, one of the best games this year so far.
And so that again, it's just an industry. Just the industry sucks right now. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. I will be making videos in the next couple of days. Obviously, we're going to be doing podcasting until the end of the week, and of course, Friday I'm kind of on the fence. I got to see how it lines up if we're going to have anybody, because people might be going away for vacation. If they are, we'll just we'll cut and run for Friday morning's breakfast at Boom, and we'll just I'll do a couple of extra videos, throw them up on the socials or whatever. But again, right now we're locked in for tomorrow night's prime time and Thursday's X Vlog Live. Friday I'm on the fence about, because again, we might not have enough people to actually do a podcast because people are going to want to go away on vacation. So I'll keep you advised. But of course, a big thank you to all of the super chats, gifted subs, and channel member chats that continue to come in. Mrs. Boom and I do greatly appreciate the support. And of course, we'll close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day, ladies and gentlemen, will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. He'd say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast.